just a local landmark. And I go, I don't want, what, I can't change my windows, what's it, because I just took by to reset, fix them up. And it's just a really big house on Capitol.
I haven't been in it, I just
Apartment on the third floor, it was neat, and she's like, yeah, this has.
I never wanted to read them.
What?
Literally just.
But we found a way to make it work, but like you said, no incentives really. Like create a box or whatever. That's how
You should
we do
just
it,
text,
right?
you really should.
That's true.
Or available.
We're ready as soon as the clock turns over.
It's perfect.
Call to order at the February 20th, 2025, meeting of the Zoning Board of Edinburgh Commission. Could we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Amen,
Present.
Commissioner Casey,
Present.
Commissioner West. Here. Commissioner Oakley. Present. Commissioner Strauss,
Here.
Mr. Strong,
Here.
Commissioner Weathers. And Commissioner Kirkman is absent excused. We have a quorum.
Excellent, thank you. That brings us to public comment for any items that aren't on the agenda other than our public hearings, and I don't see anybody here, just for the record, so we'll move on to the next agenda item. We will move to the consent calendar and the approval of minutes. May I please have a motion?
Move approval.
Perfect. I would like to just offer two clarifications on the minutes. One is on page 2, there's an action that duplicates elect Kara Kaiser Vice Chair. I think it's just to add a presentation to the agenda. So that looks like it needs to be just a typo that's changed. And then I see also on the vote on page 3, the top vote, the counts are not correct. Cool. Any other corrections? Cool. Then I will go ahead and take a vote to approve of those corrections. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, the motion passes. We don't have any public hearings on the agenda, so we're going to move to special orders of business. Our first action item is the Oregon Country Methodist Mission Site Nomination Recommendation. And I do believe we have a staff presentation. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Good stuff.
It should show. So Kimberly Fitzgerald, Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Salem. So we're going to give you two different presentations today. So I'm here presenting an overview of the historic context and to talk a little bit about what a National Register multiple property document is. And I feel like we've got, well, at least one, I'll loop Kara and two experts here who can correct me if I've got any of that wrong, but I realize I hadn't even ever talked to you about this before, so I'm going to share a bit about it, and then Jake will give you a presentation about the actual action we're looking for you to do this evening. So how this all began was in 2020 when we did archaeological investigations. At the time, Commissioner Weathers actually owned the property and we were assisting with doing the archaeological compliance so that the structure could be built on that site and along with police officers. Okay. So I've got a few. Sure. So there's a few pictures on here, and if you haven't yet been over to the Willamette Heritage Center, you can actually see the restored Jason Lee House, which is the picture in the lower right of the screen. But these other pictures, so the top left shows the house as it when it fronted Broadway. It had morphed over time, the over 100 and I believe 20 years it was on the site. And then in the 60s, when it was broken apart, so the original 1841 section of the house was saved and moved. And what we were investigating was the archaeological remains of the foundation and any associated artifacts on the site, and we were quite excited to find the brick basement wall relatively intact in at least one section of it. So I believe Commissioner Kaiser was even able to come out and say we did, it was, if you remember, something going on. And we still tried to do our public archaeology and our outreach. So we had the masks and we did like was a Facebook live tour. Yeah. So you were and then in subsequent years, we did additional archaeological investigations. You can see pictured here is the parsonage site, which was another structure that was built in what became Salem. And we've been working on that site. Well, we did it in 2022, 23, and we finished up last year. Same sort of thing. We were able to find both artifacts and evidence of a very different kind of foundation there. And we began work on the Willamette University campus last year, and we're going to be doing additional work this upcoming summer. So what this is showing you on the right side is our units. On the left side, there was some I'll loosely call it archaeological investigations done by a professor at Willamette in 2003, David McCreary. And he did find evidence of a foundation also for when they were doing some trenching back then in 2003. So that's how we figured out we were going to be doing our investigations, but we're going to be continuing that. But through all of this, and I believe it was when Robert was the National Register coordinator when we were first talking to you about doing a National Register nomination. And since then you can speak to what you're doing, but you changed positions, so we're working with an additional staff person. But we initially had a little, we grappled with the scope of this, and initially we were just, well, actually it began with a National Register nomination just for the Jason Lee site, so just one. And then we were like, well, we should do an MPD, a multiple property document. Is a bit like it's an umbrella document, which allows you to write one historic context statement to cover multiple different sites that aren't necessarily directly geographically connected to each other. Did I think that? And then you can write, and you can see pictured here what we did for this one, several associated historic context statements. So you have your big umbrella one, and then you can have multiple ones under that umbrella connected to that same theme. So I'm going to talk through a little bit about what it is that we did end up doing. So it grew from one site to Salem sites, then to all the known Methodist mission sites in the Oregon country, which now includes both Oregon and Washington. So what you see on your screen here are those 6 sites overlaid over a map of what it looks like today. So I'm going to go through each of them one at a time, but essentially, it's Mission Bottom Station. I'm going to speak about them in the order that they were constructed. So the first one is 1834 at Mission Bottom, and then the one at the Dalles, 1838, then Nisqually, which is the one furthest north, which is in what is now DuPont, Washington. And then the Central Station, which is in Salem, it was not Salem, that was 1840. And then the Clatsop Plains Station, also in 1840, and Willamette Falls Station, which is in what's now Oregon City. So this is a very busy slide. So this shows a map of the United States, but specifically I want to point out what the Oregon country encompassed at the time, a much larger area than what we now know as Oregon. So this is a map from 1839. And I don't know if you can see it very well on the slide, but that the painting, George Prophet's American Progress, really reflects the mindset of the Methodist missionaries at the time. They believed that they were doing the work of God, and their mission was to convert the indigenous people and to acclimate them and educate them to the Euro-American way of farming and living. And what you can see on the right hand of your slide, so Jason Lee, he was the lead missionary in charge of the Methodist mission to the Oregon country, and his mentor, Dr. Fisk, they laid out a plan. So Jason Lee had been in the Oregon country at the original Mission Bottom station since 1834, and they were struggling. They struggled for a lot of reasons, and he decided to go back east and to raise money to expand their missionary work out here. And so they developed this plan, Jason Lee and Dr. Fisk, to expand it, and that's what you're seeing there on the right. Now, not all of these stations were ultimately constructed, but a lot of them were. Like, for example, the Willamette mission statement. So it's the Willamette one, when they refer to that, that's the new central station at Salem. The one at Umpqua was never built. That was part of the research that we did. We initially thought it had, and then just didn't last very long, but it was never built. There's a number of reasons for that. But the ones at Willamette Falls, Nisqually, the Dalles, and then the Classic, they were built. So I'm going to share a few images. I'm just going to go through one site at a time. So again, this was the first one, the 1834 Mission Bottom Station. It's hard to see, but you have to look across the river and you can see the building over there. This was a Henry Eld sketch, and he completed that in 1841. And this site, by 1841, was considered the old mission. They pretty much abandoned it to move to Salem just because it kept flooding. It was not a good place. It was on low ground. But this shows, this is a map. This one's from 1851. It's the Gibbs and Starling map, and it shows, I really like this one. It shows at the top of your screen, you see old M mission, and that's the old Methodist mission. And you can get a sense of where Salem is there now. To give you a sense of where it is. So the second site was the Dalles, and that was constructed in 1838. And again, when Dr. Fisk and Jason Lee were trying to determine where to put their missions, they chose locations where there were known village sites or known gathering sites. So if you've ever been to the Dalles, or if you're familiar with the falls, there's that picture there, which it no longer exists because they built a dam. But it was for thousands of years a central gathering place where many tribes from all over would come and trade. And by and large, this station at the Dalles was the most successful. It lasted for the longest period of time. So the period of significance, so similar to a historic district, a regular historic district, there's a period of significance for the MPD. And that's one of the interesting things that evolved over time as we were researching. We actually extended the period of significance to 1847 because the end date is the end date of this station. So the Dalles station operated at the longest. And this picture, I've got a couple of pictures here. So one of the cool things is that Jason Lee apparently used to preach from something called Pulpit Rock. And that rock you can still see today in the Dalles. There's a little plaque there you can see, and it says Reverend Jason Lee, and it was, actually it was Daniel Lee, his nephew. He was the one who managed the station primarily for many years. And one of his, published journals of his time, 10 years in Oregon, is one of our best sources of information about what life was like. And he was there with, Reverend Perkins. And then the drawing there on the lower left, that it also, I mean, the station had probably the most structures in one location, which is really fascinating, just because it was a very active and successful station. And when, well, the Methodist, I don't know how much I'm going to go into, the Methodists, they decided to close all of the Oregon missions. And they left this one open a little bit longer, and they ultimately sold it to, I don't remember the long name, the Presbyterian folks, and then the massacre happened in, well, and ultimately this became Fort Dallas, so the Army took it over. And they demolished all the buildings to build their own. So there's nothing left, but there would be very interesting archaeology. So the next station was the Nisqually station, and so that one, again, it's in what is presently known as DuPont, Washington. That was the one that was the furthest north. And one of the other techniques they used to decide where to locate their missions was that they really looked at where there were already trading posts or forts. So the Hudson's Bay Company, you know, they had quite a presence at Fort Vancouver. And so they also had a fort here in Nisqually. And so because of their need for supplies, construction supplies, food supplies, and also honestly, that military kind of support, because it really, if you remember, it was the Oregon Country Law Unknown. So they located very close to the Fort Nisqually here. And this mission station didn't last for very long, just through 1842. It was the building that you see here, it was burned, and there was mysterious circumstances. There's some documentation that say it was burned by the local indigenous people who were not happy about Euro-Americans in their territory. And they chose not to rebuild there. So this, if you recognize it, this is the Jason Lee House. And this is it's also known as Mill Place. So it was actually, the name, the building itself during the period of significance was referred to as Mill Place because there was a lumber mill that the Methodists built right across from Mill Creek. I don't have a map showing that, but because they were doing so much construction in 1840, they really determined that they needed to make their own lumber. So this residence was meant to be the headquarters where Jason Lee and 3 other families lived. And it was the first one they built with the lumber from that lumber mill. And this image is from a panoramic lithograph from 1858. So this is a GLO map from 1852. And so the central station, the Salem station, that was where Jason Lee and Dr. Fisk really decided they wanted most of the new construction to happen here. And their vision was that they wanted all of the day-to-day operations, so not the spiritual work, not the missionary work, like going out with the indigenous people at the villages. They didn't want them to have to worry about like food and supplies and stuff and the things. So they made the decision that all of that would happen at the central station in Salem. They also made the decision to construct a school here for the children. So they would, how do I obtain the children and bring them back to Salem. So what you're seeing pictured here And it doesn't show the mill or the Mill Place house, but it does show the school, which eventually was sold to the Oregon Institute, but originally was the Indian Mission Manual Labor School, and then the parsonage, which was originally the administration building where the teachers lived, and essentially the Methodist teachers. So that shows, here's another picture overlaid over the current tax lot map. And what's really lovely, we have these images so that the Oregon Institute, I mean, look at it, it was for its time. It was quite an impressive building for them to construct that in 1842. And the drawing there on the lower left-hand side, you can kind of see, so you can figure out where it was. So that's Waller Hall, which is still there. You can kind of see tucked in the back where the Oregon Institute or rather Manual Labor Training School was. So now the fifth one, so the Clatsop Mission. So this is a chart of the Columbia River from 1838. And again, if you remember, they chose to locate their missions near known villages. So there were quite a few villages. There was a Chinook village, there was a Clatsop village, and there was also a fort. So Fort George, so it ticked all the boxes. So they chose to build their mission station on Clatsop Plains here. I don't know if you can see the tiny little arrow. They relocated it a couple of times. I don't know why they didn't learn, like, don't build your houses really close to the water. But they initially built it close to the river, and then they're like, oh, we gotta move it back. So yeah, it's in a few different locations. And then the last one, the Willamette Falls Mission Station, you can see here, very similar in a way to the Dalles. They had, of course, the Willamette Falls. It was a central location for trading. There was also a village there. And Oregon City, they built, you can see this is a later picture from 1899, but this was the original location where they built their first structure, and then they built eventually a meeting house. And their presence, it was in Oregon City for quite a while. And they had a store here. So the Oregon City site, it became a bit more controversial because, and it was one of the reasons why the board on the East Coast they were hearing a lot of complaints that the Methodists weren't just focusing on conversion and spiritual work. They were out trying to make money. So here in Oregon City, they had a store and they were selling stuff. So, and they also, there was a whole controversy about land, which I won't go into, but it was one of the reasons that the board back east was like, we need to shut you guys down. You're costing us too much money, plus you're not really focusing on the core pure mission. So I'm gonna wrap up with back to the National Register nomination, and in just a second, Jake will talk to you about what we're looking for your help in doing. So in order to nominate or have an NPD become listed, you have to nominate at least one individual property under that NPD. So you don't have to do all of them, even though I talked about all of them and I have the context for all of them. You don't have to develop an individual nomination for each of them, but it does pave the way for future work, for future archaeologists or future historians or both working together to do that. So in this case, we've gone back to the beginning, right? We're doing an individual nomination for Mill Place, the Jason Lee House site. And I do just want to point out, it's very similar. I have to tell you, I put my code brain on that you have to have criteria that is hopefully clear and objective so that anyone in the future can be like, hey, how do I meet this? Oh, it's very clear. So the evaluation criteria are very similar to what we do for buildings, even though it's archaeology. There's general registration requirements. There's significance. We have to demonstrate at least, just like for a local landmark. And that significance is identified in those individual context statements that I did develop 6 of them, but in this case, we're just looking at the one for the central station here in Salem. And then there's the integrity, and again, that, you know, if you look through the document, you can see that I've outlined exactly what that means for archaeology. I know for, at least it was for me, because I had done National Register nominations before for above ground structures. That framework was really familiar to me, it's just translating it then to archaeological components, but it's still essentially the same, is that there needs to be enough stuff and things from that historic period when that significant event or person was there to convey that. So in this particular case at Mill Place, it's the foundation to the structure, demonstrating, oh yeah, that structure was here and that was constructed by the Methodists. We also found wood and some other things. The coolest things that we found were the ceramics, the transfer print, which we were able to definitively connect to some similar transfer print that were found at Mission Bottom. There was some archaeological work that was done there. So if you remember, that was the first site. So we were able to see, oh, they picked up their stuff and they carried it to Salem and then they broke it, yay. No, so we could connect. So that's the end of my piece, and then I will Jane Taylor. You need to do the thing. Ever. For the top.
Okay.
Can I ask a question while we're, I'm just kind of curious, I feel like for built resources, the integrity is kind of clear, right? No one knows original siting, and I don't know that much about how you would evaluate the integrity of an archaeological site, I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and that's a lot of the work that we did and got help from the archaeologists actually at the Chippewatas. And because there haven't been really a lot of archaeological MPDs, right? And so one of the things that that we worked on together was really making sure to define what integrity means. And I put in the nomination innovation to see how the essays, so the State Advisory Committee on Historic Preservation will be listening to this tomorrow and probably having that same discussion. And so in there, I put essentially, what's the right word, a disclaimer, which basically clarified that there needs to be at least one feature or in Oregon, 2 artifacts make a site enough, just like setting a threshold, a basic threshold, that it's not unlike a house where you need, you know, a majority. with archaeology, it's a little bit forgiving, but it needs to be defined in the MPD, in the general registration requirements. And so actually I spent a few pages discussing that and basically saying things like, especially in areas where there's been a lot of urban redevelopment, there's the 7 aspects of integrity. So I went through all of them. And so one of them, I'm totally going off memory, you guys get to correct me if I'm wrong. The setting and the feeling and so for example, so in 1840, yeah, the feeling of that site would have been very different, not urban, very rural, right? And so in my discussion, I talk about that's okay. It doesn't mean that this site won't be eligible. So it's going through those 7 aspects of integrity and defining which ones, yeah, it's logical, this should apply at a minimum. Like, you know, these other ones, we can expect that they may not because of how much has changed over time. So, you know, it's not. Robert and Karen.
Commissioner Inman.
Yeah, there's a really good example of an archaeological National Register site in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
Where the Benjamin Franklin House
Oh, yes.
was. And there's a cellar from the original house that's in this sort of an open space, open quad. And at some point, they decided to build a ghost house, which is just a metal frame painted white that shows what the proportions of the house was above this cellar. But all that's really there is the cellar. But it's a National Register site, and it's extremely interesting.
Yeah, I think I talked to Charles about wanting to build some sort of a glass cover over them. I know, we didn't have.
Interesting, thank you. So when you say like a feature, that means like a foundation or a basement or like a well or something?
Yeah, or privy. Oh my gosh, we would love a privy. Yeah, so it's, you know, what's nice about, so in Oregon and there's all these documents that define those things. So those are definable, like what is a feature, what is a site, so that, you know, I don't have to make that stuff up. Yes.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
What do you hope to find if this is made available for research?
Oh, so moving forward, I guess what I would hope is laying the groundwork for other people, like, because even in doing the research, I did a lot of outreach, of course, to these different communities. And even as far as like Nisqually, they were very excited that we were doing this work. The city of DuPont had adopted their own historic preservation plan, and they had made recommendations about additional interpretation and future work for the site, but they didn't have all this history. So for example, they could use this moving forward to have their folks, if they're, what is it, DAPT, the state archaeology people there could do some archaeological investigations to find out what the construction methods were, how much was the same, what was different. So that's, I mean, learning about this really early period, and again, especially the contact period with the indigenous people, is an area I know that at least the tribes here around Salem are very interested in exploring. And this next phase of work that we're going to be doing, we're doing it collaboratively with the Grand Ronde and Siletz, and it's a painful chapter, and we're talking about very similar to the work in the cemetery with the Chinese community, talking about, okay, depending on what we find, how can we then move forward with some kind of healing connected to place. So.
I'm Jacob Morris, Preservation Manager. Is Kimberly did a great job of laying the groundwork of everything. While we're here. Just to reiterate a little bit, you know, the State Historic Preservation Office, they're requesting input from the City of Salem for certified local government, special registered nomination, property documentation. They are going to go in front of the advisory committee for historic preservation, and then they in turn make their recommendation of the National Park Service for the for nomination of properties. This is an interesting one because a lot of times when you have a multiple property documentation, maybe just a building type, and you might not know how many you have, but here there was documentation, so they knew exactly what the geographic areas. So a lot of the focus is on other aspects because you don't find like an extra one of these in the wild like you might something like log cabin or something like that, or a building type. Like, oh, there's another house. We have an MPD that let us know that. So this is a lot more challenging in a lot of ways because they have to be broad, but also very specific in the other aspects. And so that's one of the reasons why this is an interesting one. And, you know, like as Kimberly says, they always have a companion to see how the registration requirements work, because a lot of times they seem to work and then in practice, there's something that might not be considered. But they're done some companions, so they kind of test it as soon as it's there, which makes them very important to do. And so that's what we're looking at now is the Mill Place House, also known as the Jason Lee House site, which is an archaeological site. I did want to put on record, you know, in addition, Kimberly Fitzgerald, who is staff here, but also Libby Provost and Brad Owen from the Historic Research Associates help work together on this nomination here. And then there are some things we are looking at, you know, as you're aware, and we provided earlier, there's a nomination sheet that the SHPO issues that has specific questions for that, for the nomination, and that's going to be considered tomorrow at the meeting. And then and so and that is the MPD as well as its individual site. Some of the specific things looked at for this, you know, we're looking at the integrity as an archaeological site. So what that means is we're conveying the historic use of the site by the Methodist missionaries from 1841 to 1842. And things that are informing integrity are things like the soil stratigraphy. Even though it's disturbed, there are still useful and diagnostic artifacts there. And then also we have, there is intact foundation aspects. And so both of those are things that give it integrity of association with the period of significance and the staff. It's funny to say staff agrees with the application because there's probably a reason for some of that makes sense. Yeah, and so that's what we have there, and then let's see, and then we have, you know, what is the thing we're asking you to do here? You know, it's within the boundary of the known Methodist mission sites as identified in the MPD. And then we talked about the integrity. And we're looking at two criteria. The first criteria is criteria A, which is association with broad patterns of history. You know, that's the Methodist mission experiment that occurred here, and then how that played out as embodied by this site. And then the other is criterion D under information potential. So there's alternatives, you know, is the Historic Landmarks Commission is the representatives of the city of Salem. First, you can take no action, you know, there's no requirement to comment, there's an opportunity to comment. And then the other would be to voice your support, you know, so that'd be a letter of support, and we did draft a draft with, give a framework to work off of. You can use, disregard, or, you know, incorporate any part of that, just feel free to let us know what you'd like to have added. Change, that sort of thing. And then the other would be if you find either this property is not eligible or the nomination just does not fit what you feel the criteria of the National Register is, then you can also oppose it. And then if you choose to do that, we will provide a letter to that effect as well. And just as a point of clarity, for this one, because of the time frame, this will be the whatever comments there, they will be sent to the National Park Service from the State Historic Preservation Office as part of that packet for consideration. That's I complete my presentation.
Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Strong?
Yeah, the first slide referenced a building built in 1939. Forward one. Is that supposed to be 1839?
No, that was. Sorry.
Okay, there is another one under period of significance and the same. Okay, all right. Got it. We are talking about 18.
Yes.
Yes.
Got it.
I had a question. Just as a point of clarification, so this National Register nomination is just for the Mill Place house site, and the other Salem location, parsonage and the school would be considered separately at a future time.
That's correct.
Okay,
You know, it's the same nomination was written for either of those. Assuming the MPD is adopted, then what they would do is they would use those registration requirements and to see what extent what they have on the ground there is sufficient. Like say for instance, they did excavation and everything's gone, then it wouldn't have issues with integrity because they wouldn't have enough embodied history to convey it, even though it may be significant, it might not have integrity. So they wouldn't know that until they actually did the nomination research to develop the nomination.
okay, perfect. Commissioner Kaiser?
So a very minor comment, just because I can't help myself, but the National Register nomination for the Mill Place House itself, on page 9, your section 8 statement of significance, it's a check mark. You have to check mark criteria B instead of C.
Yeah,
I'm sure you guys got that. I'm sure the SACH people.
Oh, yeah.
Be all over it tomorrow.
I'll spend 20 minutes talking.
Talking about it and be like.
We're checking it.
Commissioner England?
I have one more
Robert.
typographical. And on page 2 of our draft letter, item 3.3, period of contact is misspelled. We just want you to be totally prepared.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, Commissioner Olin?
Question, have the Washington SHPO provided any comments? Mostly just on the MPD, it's just.
According to the Oregon SHPO staff, they're supportive and they're talking about the logistics of how to move it forward. And I don't know the answer to that, whether they have to do a similar process or not. I don't. Did you talk to them when you, sorry, never. Yeah, I don't know. They're supportive. It's just the process is unclear. I don't know that they've done this. Maybe they have to.
It is precedent.
Yeah,
We've had some Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
That includes like Oregon, Washington, I have a feeling they're all like 70s. 80s, like.
There was one a couple of years
Was
ago,
there?
Do you remember?
an architect that did work in Vancouver and Portland. Can't remember. So,
Yeah, I don't know. Just along for the ride.
any more comments? Yeah, show me.
Can add comments on what we're talking about, but okay. First, just for the record, I don't believe I have a conflict of interest, but just wanted to state that I did review in my professional job earlier versions of both of these documents, but this is not what I reviewed, so just.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Two comments I had, kind of just for kind of future revisions, I think. Going back to the question that you got on integrity. I think that the way that integrity is discussed here could be a little more nuanced. I think there is a distinction between criterion A and D and how you apply those aspects. And I don't believe that the case has been made for all of them for things in criterion A and D. Things like design or workmanship under criterion A, I think could be explored a little bit more and how that was talked about. For instance, in criterion D, the research questions drive integrity, so I think a little more nuance in there. I think the case could probably be made. I think A has a little more to go than D, but just I think that's one thing I would recommend. And then on the research questions, there's some good questions in there, but I think it just kind of needs kind of that next step on like really understanding what we're gonna learn from the data potential there. I think where I kind of left it was sort of, I get what we found and what's there, but I'm not understanding clearly like what more are we learning here that we don't already. Right, from that specific study. So I think there could just be a few more in that, but I think overall I would support this and think it's eligible.
And you're commenting on the National Register.
Yeah, it's just the non-mention.
Perfect. And maybe staff, you could clarify like where this is at in its process with the State Historic Preservation Office and the NPS.
Right, so it's going to be reviewed for the first time at the State Advisory Committee on Historic Preservation. And it's been a while since I've been, but my guess is that they'll discuss similar to what you guys are doing tonight and provide feedback and comments. And so I'm anticipating getting a list of recommended revisions. And help me if I get this wrong, but my memory of the options are that SACHP can recommend that it move forward to the keeper with recommended revisions, or they could ask for it to come back, table it, and then make a bunch of changes and then come back for round two. And I think the table choice is if there's so many substantive changes that are needed that they're not, they need a little. So, and then you guys gotta help me. So then it goes to the National Parks Service. And there's a reviewer who, I have no idea how much area they're reviewing. And I also don't know exactly how the Washington piece will play into this. I'm imagining that maybe they'll need to wait for Washington to do their own process, and then they may have comments, and then once everyone's happy, then it'll go. And then they review it, and they can potentially also have revisions, or just be like, it's fine. So
Okay.
That's my understanding of the
So,
process.
there is an opportunity, if we provide more comments.
Oh,
on
definitely.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. So anybody who, like I wrote down your comments, Robert, but please feel free to send them to me. Anyone else who has them to.
So when it gets to the keeper of the National Register, they post it in the Federal Register, and there's a public. That happens at that federal level. But essentially, the state of Oregon, the State Historic Preservation Officer makes a recommendation to the National Park Service, so that they put it through their own review process. But like, when I was at the SHPO doing this work, it was rare for something not to be accepted by the National Park
concerns.
There is a deadline for when the SHPO has to forward it. It's a 90 days after that meeting, so there is sort of a timeline. Pending, it's not a recommendation.
Good to know. And what's the process with Washington? They're gonna have to list a multiple property document as well?
I think, so this is just my understanding, I'm by no means an expert. I believe that, so the listing happens at the national, but they are free to make recommendations. My understanding is that they can have their equivalent SACHP or whatever it's called, review it, make a recommendation, make a list of revisions that would come back to me. And then I would imagine that if they wanted to comment on it, the Oregon Shepherd would wait until everything was all done, and then so the keeper just gets one package, but I don't know.
So like a joint recommendation?
That's what I would imagine,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, it's just the MPD to clarify, it's not the nomination. And so it's because the boundary crosses into Washington, but when they use it, they need to say, yeah, it's not, so the Park Service would want 2 signatures from both states to.
Okay, and just on the NPD, not
Right.
the mill site.
And it would only be, they would, if it was the Nisqually station site, then it would just be, it would just be.
That's all very complicated. Oh my God. Okay, great. Any other comments? Any other recommendations that folks would like to make? I provided some comments back just like on the PDF, so I hope that's useful. And other than that, I suppose I'll entertain a motion if anybody else wants to make a comment.
I'll need to make a motion that the HLC by the applicant, make the case for listing in the National Register, HLC authorized staff to draft a letter of support to be sent to Oregon Shepherd.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion by Commissioner Kaiser and a second by Commissioner Inman to offer a letter of support and to have this continue on in the process. Are there any comments on the motion?
Just wanted to make one comment is that this is a ton of work. Kudos, and I don't know, Jake, if you're, I mean, obviously you're Paul too, but Kim and I know Libby, I don't know the other person that you named, but this is great work. And it feels like it's a missing piece of our heritage here in Salem that I think it's kind of collectively gray. And we hear a lot about the Methodist perspective and the missionary perspective, but I was looking through just the NPD and even just listing the names of the children who were at that school, even though they were Anglicized, but they sometimes had their tribal affiliation or sometimes their actual name. It just really was like, wow, they were here before the Euro-American settlers were here. And this is really going to provide a lot of context for that. For future researchers and just the public. So kudos to that. I'm really glad that we're setting a great example with the NPDs. They're really underutilized tools in preservation and can get us a lot for the down road. So great job and additional kudos to it's great personally for me to see this project go all the way through the cycle of we had a site, an old parking lot, nothing there, or really a parking lot there. I think it was just parking grass or
It was.
paved or bad pavement.
There's a lot of needles.
Yeah, we had a gross site that the development was gonna happen on, and I think, Kimberly, you had the foresight to say, hey, before we do something with that, let's go dig around, because we know there might be something there, and let's make it a public educational opportunity as well. And it's so cool to see that now through to the development that happened, that research that happened, and now this document. Setting for the future, so well done all, and that's a good story.
Yeah, Commissioner Queen.
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of that too, and I think what's really encouraging here is this is a lot of work, but especially MPDs, and they're expensive. And for the city to use, as a CLG, I think it does kind of set the bar for some of that. So appreciate all the work that was done with this and look forward to additional listings. And I think it's also really archaeology is really the focus here, and to tell the story through that, I think is really cool, because there's really neat things that come out of it. So
Yeah, I just want to echo my support. Very excited to see this. I've done a lot of research personally into the Methodist missionaries, and I think something that was always missing was sort of a combined document, like where they were and who was there. And so it's exciting to see this context kind of come together, the bibliography in mind. So very exciting. All right, great. Any other comments? All right, everyone in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. That concludes our action items. We'll move on to informational reports. We have a few discussion items tonight, and first up is the photo contest and historic preservation month. I understand you guys talked a little bit about some of this while I was absent last month. Zach, do you have something to?
I'm just ready to talk about the photo contest when we're ready.
Okay, perfect. And we could dive right in. That sounds good.
So last month, we did some work plan assignments, and I know Tony and Charles had volunteered to be on the committee for the photo contest, and then we had a somewhat light agenda, which ended up taking longer than I thought, but so we thought we would just talk about it as a group real quick, instead of having a separate meeting for this. But our every year we do a photo contest as part of Historic Preservation Month celebrations, and we are just kind of doing a brief check-in. I do all the logistics and stuff, but checking in with the commission if you want to change any categories or deadlines or things like that. So we always have a youth and an adult award that we'll give out for each of the categories. 4 categories that we've done in the recent past has been historic interiors, historic exteriors, historic landscapes, streetscapes and features, and then a portrait or animal photo with a historic feature or building. Are the 4 categories that we've had. So does anyone want to change those categories, add categories, get rid of categories? Any thoughts on those?
I just remember the content last time was a lot of things that are already top of mind when we talk about historic stuff in town, and there's so much more out there. I don't want to dissuade anyone from participating. I'd love if there was a nudge somehow in the category or below. It's like, hey, don't just go to Boone's Treasury in Deepwood. Yeah. You know, just for the sake of let's tell people more stuff. Yeah, that's all. But again, there was low participation if I recall, so I don't want to dissuade anybody, but if anyone has ideas of how to inspire them to dig slightly deeper, I'd love to see that.
One of there is a sentence in our news article announcing the contest that says that the Historic Landmarks Commission is particularly interested in building sites and features that may often go overlooked or are obscure, but that's all it says right now. So if we want to expand on that or do something.
I guess what just gave me it's a little iteration, and it's sort of the theme there. What I was just saying is, I don't know how to replace, but something that just says like history.
I was gonna suggest, yeah, maybe we should add like a theme to this year's photo contest, like hidden histories or something like that. That might encourage folks to, or maybe we could include, like, along with the theme, like a note on the criteria, including, you know, have we seen a photo of this before, or something like that.
Is there a way for, do they see what has already been done? So people don't do the same thing? That seems like a lot of work. You have to dig it up, but it's correct.
Yeah, I mean, well, generally we'll use one of the photos as like here's last year's winner of this category, but we don't include all of the submissions or all of the photos.
When I think hidden, obviously, I mean, in and of itself, it's cool to find stuff, right? That's the one covering. But if there was maybe a scavenger hunt type thing, and not looking to make this any harder, but suggestions of areas, so that people don't go, oh, just downtown. If there were like a little image of a map and go, if you're having some trouble with inspiration, check out this vicinity or check out this estate, to encourage people to go find more stuff.
Yeah, name or link our historic districts. So that, you know, the history may be closer than you think, you don't have to go downtown. So just, you know, name and number our districts
I guess
as
it
a prompt.
depends on how badly they want that prize.
Can you give me categories again?
Sure, historic interiors, exteriors, landscapes, streetscapes and features, and then portrait or animal photo featuring a historic feature.
Okay. I was thinking landscape, but it's already. Do we tell, we're defining historic as 50 years or older? Ish. Can we remind people that that's now 1975? Cause we might get some really great newer history stuff.
Around this living room, is that?
Yeah. Totally.
I
see that slide.
Yeah, I think we could do a lot better job clarifying it, and I don't know if this is really the forum to discuss it, but yeah, I mean, if I were gonna start this from scratch, I might change a few things to just, I would simplify it. I think we need certain areas. I think if it's gonna be annual and it's gonna be sponsored, there should be a prize. And it should be funded. I mean, I'm willing to help with that initially, but I think it needs to be funded in the future if it's gonna be an annual thing. And I also think we need to define, are we looking at historic photos, or are these just photos of historic objects? What about historic photos?
That's interesting.
I could win that hands down, because I'm going to like 19 bucks. But
Oh, Connie, is your mic on? Sorry.
Huh?
Is your mic on?
no, it's not on, I'm just rambling. I think that we could probably do a better job of defining it, and the participation might be better if it were clear and if it was just conveyed a little bit more clearly and narrowly. Cause I mean, I've been confused in the past and I was on.
Oh, I do see, so, the commissioners who are like assigned to guide the photo contest are Charles and Connie, is that right? Okay, cool. I mean, I feel like you guys are empowered to make decisions on behalf of the committee. If you'd like to make changes to the photo contest, I don't think it necessarily needs to come back to the big group, so I want you to feel empowered.
I like the idea of theme. If we could, cause I think it could help people. We might get some different stuff, and I don't know what that theme might be. I don't, for some reason, just schools or education came to mind. Just throwing that out there, we don't have to do that, I don't know why that was top of mind for me, probably was a good to historic movies. The other thing that came to mind was I was thinking about our natural spaces, like especially like Minto Brown, which is very historic, it's got a bunch of stuff out there, and I think people think of it in that way. But yeah, I like that idea of being organized.
So I like the idea that Charles came up with a map and the theme based, so. Just throwing out the idea that if you did say education, be very easy, I say very easy. I have someone that could easily produce a map that puts all the schools onto a Salem map and kind of gave a little date and gave some history of those, like that'd be an easy graphic to produce. To supplement, or if it were parks, you could do the same thing, you go through and here's this park and here's its, origination date and a little blurb about it. So I think that could be, it does kind of play that idea, it's not quite a scavenger's hunt, but it is defining areas that maybe that helps. So I like that.
Can I ask, and forgive me if you said this, are you also, is everyone wanting a separate youth category this year as well, or not?
Well, I think originally we had that youth category because we had a lot of school participations. We had like a lot of youth entries because there was a couple of art teachers around who had their, kids participate. And so if there are gonna be teachers involved, it's nice because it's good to be able to give children prizes. But if there's not gonna be, school involvement, maybe we don't need to separate out so much is how I feel about it.
Maybe we turn it over to this subcommittee I don't wanna give you too much to do, and also, Lisa can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can discuss this on your own, you don't have to bring it back to the group. You can meet separately, and talk through what you wanna do, and then ask staff for help. But I think we wanna also be cognizant of time, because
I was gonna say, remind me of the timeline?
That was another question for the commission, why we wanted to bring tonight was, we have discussed in the past opening it earlier so that we would vote on the awards in April and then celebrate the winners during Historic Preservation Month in May. In the past, we voted in May, so and then we have done individual photos and things with the winners, so I don't know if the commission wants it to open earlier, in which case we have to be ready pretty soon. Like in.
How long is the opening usually for?
We usually have it open for a month.
I'm flexible either way. Do we like the way that we've done it in the past few years, like having folks? I guess one thing is like, I don't ever see the winners. Like, I don't know. I don't know who they are, or like have any interaction with them, which is fine. I feel like maybe it's easier on everybody's schedules to not have to like come to the meeting, but it is also nice, I think, to have like a little bit of a party during Historic Preservation Month and celebrate the photo winners and have some cake and nice photo. I don't know, but I'm flexible. I'm not married to one idea or the other, but I do like cake.
Let the record reflect.
And they can bake cake.
Oh, even better.
Well, right.
well, could we pick a date that you guys would get back to us? Would that be all right, regardless of where you are March 1st? Is that Saturday? Never mind, March 3rd. Then just with some recommendations.
Jim talked to you too. Zach's running it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
On the timeline, if we open the time for photo submissions from say March 15th till before our April meeting, something a week before, or some whatever cutoff date would seem, but like for 4 weeks, the Cherry Blossom Festival is March 15th. So if that's in the period for submittals, might get some cool pictures of the Capitol and the.
Sure.
So just an idea.
We'll talk, so get last two questions.
Perfect. Excellent. You guys are empowered. Make it cool, make it exciting. Good, great, I love it. Okay. All right, do you guys have what you need on that? Do you need any more information from staff?
Get access.
Okay, cool. Okay, perfect. Then I think we can probably move on to just Historic Preservation Month in general.
Yeah, I would kind of turn this over to you because you had some suggestions of some things that you would like to do and wanted to ask commissioners if anyone wanted to help you, so.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, perfect. So Historic Preservation Month is in May, which is gonna be here faster than you realize, I'm sure. So we've got kind of 2 months to plan things, so we can talk about things it's February now, so we have March, and we have April, which is when we're gonna be voting on the photo contest ostensibly. If we wanna do kind of celebration style in May, or maybe we do the photo contest in May as a celebration. I'm fine with either. But I do think maybe we should think about other activities we want to do for Historic Preservation Month. Do we want to offer tours of our historic districts? Do we want to, I feel like we have done kind of the photo contest and we haven't done a whole lot else, but there's a lot of cool opportunities to, celebrate our historic resources in town. So I'm sure folks have another suggestion. I was recently doing some like outreach at the Corvallis Historic Commission, they do tours next.
What do they do tours of?
They do tours up there downtown district. Just cute, and they have a microphone. We wanna do my, we don't want to.
They make you laugh.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool if we did do a tour, if it's a tour of things that you don't normally get to see, like, well, village park, of course. Right? Paranormal tour, yes. But Albany used to do a upstairs downtown tour. It was very popular. We did something like that, I think we could really, and it could be it could have an ulterior motive. Is, cause this is what Albany was doing, they were really trying to get investment into their second floor for downtown buildings. Or upper floors, so it's kind of a two-pronged, come see our cool upper floors that need development. They're all empty, there's opportunity here, but those are, I'm trying to think of places that people just don't normally have access to. That would be a cool tour, I would love personally a tour, I'll never get one. But City of Portland did a public sewer tour, and I would love to go something like that. If the city had something like that, that was historic public works things. I think you can really get people actually on board with something like that, because it's really different. Willow Lake.
Willow Lake water treatment, we do tours.
There's the West
Willow
Salem
Lake is
Pump
sewer treatment, and it's not an old building.
It's not old though.
It's not old.
It's gotta be something
From the 80s.
Yeah.
We've.
We have to wait
almost
20
old.
years.
It's
It's much old stuff, and it gets caught.
It's
It's pretty.
Like if there's something like Civic Center here, I don't think there is. Something cool on the Civic Center campus, but this is historic.
Yeah, we did just list this on the National
Yeah.
Register as a big
Yeah.
center tour.
Well, but we're moving.
How about the foundation rollers under the Capitol building?
Oh, yeah.
You know, they put base isolation under the rotunda of the Capitol building. And I mean, I personally would really like to see that.
Yeah, I can ask one, but it might just be for us, not for everyone.
I would gladly offer up the former Midlocks reminders in the dark student. I'm hoping that it's all leased up by May, so it would be very intrusive to the residents out there. You're welcome to come look at it now. There's only one rented, so there's plenty to see.
Yeah. I'd be curious to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would offer to do a downtown tour, it's something that I've done before, and something that I would feel comfortable doing, but I don't know if it would be like a special theme necessarily. So that's something that we could put on the agenda if we wanted, but I don't know. If there's other ideas too, we don't have to do a tour, we could do something else.
Kylie did a hops tour. In like
Hops
a
tour.
brewery,
Oh, like the TA Lively building, nice.
like there was several things might be interesting.
Yeah.
to go for.
We could definitely do, I know they just did an exhibit at the WHC of like buildings that have been torn down, so that would maybe be an interesting, I don't know if that's good for historic. And that's the ghost tour.
Ghost buildings. Alleys upstairs and backstage downtown. You know, the places where the public doesn't get to go. The Grand and Elsinore and the alleyways, that a lot of people don't even walk down, and they're very charming.
Well, I suppose I am thinking about like the logistics. The nice thing about doing just like a downtown tour is that I don't have to talk to anyone. I can just be in the way. But I would, you know, be willing to, I don't know, I guess I wouldn't know like the logistics of organizing something in places that people aren't normally allowed sounds a little intimidating to me. And I don't know about that.
You might need more time
Yeah.
for.
Maybe we're 26. 10 for next year. One other idea is maybe we could offer like one tour of each of our districts, like maybe we offer a downtown district. And then maybe we ask our, you know, folks who live in the other two historic districts, if they would be interested in doing a district tour of one of the other two. I don't know if maybe Juliana or Connie would be interested in organizing a tour of the Fort Chemeketa district. That would be kind of cool. I remember a Christmas tour like 10 years ago that I really loved. It was really, really fun. So I don't know.
We've done garden tours and. Let's see. Yes, the Lord Schreiber Gardens have done garden tour in Fort Chemeketa district, which was actually really interesting. I mean, people who had actual landscape, which was inspiring. And when was the last time they had house tours?
I think it was in about 2010. It was before COVID. And it was related to the tax rebate. That's not.
I don't know, I feel like maybe we should decide if this is something we want to do today, because we'll probably need some time to figure it out. But if we decide it's maybe too much for this year, I think that's fine. If we could put it on the radar for next year, that's fine. I don't know, what do you guys think?
I think if you feel comfortable doing a downtown tour, that we could offer that. And then maybe what we do for 2026 is we start talking about this a few months ahead of time or earlier, like it maybe in the fall.
Like September?
This fall, yeah.
Yeah,
I think if you do that, we need to identify a partner. So like maybe like the Main Street group in Salem would be somebody that would partner with that or someone like, so if we do think I get by September, but I think that'd be cool.
Another thing we might be able to do is to piggyback on something like downtown, the Day of Music, which is June 21st usually.
that's not a bad idea.
And have a history scavenger hunt with a prize. You know,
Is that put on by the Downtown Association? Is that put on by you?
I think it has its own, or, so there's I'm not sure
There's
who's.
a group that organizes it, but I don't know who, it's not. I don't think it's officially affiliated with any city or Main Street.
Or maybe we could do something with like First Fridays. Are those still happening downtown?
On Wednesday.
Yeah, or something. Maybe we could do like history walks.
I like the idea of ghost building,
Yeah,
ghost buildings, like buildings that are gone, they're ghost buildings.
yeah,
Could be. And it could be a on demand, like, tour,
yeah,
like something you just download.
yeah. Maybe just like yeah. Okay, well, let's go ahead and I would be happy to do a downtown tour, maybe just like one downtown tour in Historic Preservation Month and like, I don't know, sign up and then we'll see how that goes and then maybe we could kind of use that as a information gathering practice for next year if we want to do more tours or different style or something like that. And if anybody would like to do that with me, I would be delighted. Okay, thank you, Julie. Okay, cool. So I think that covers, we've got kind of two things going on for Historic Preservation Month, which is very exciting. And then I don't know, could you make a note on the September agenda to talk about Historic Preservation Month, just because otherwise I know I will not remember. Great. Is there anything anybody else wants to talk about for Historic Preservation Month? I feel like we're pretty good. Okay, cool. Yeah.
I like the idea if we could do something like the photo contest winners there, because to get people here would be nice to be like, hey, preservation. Right, so we can think of, I mean, maybe not this year, maybe for next year too, but other things that maybe we can get people to engage with a little more here would be kind of.
I just had an idea, maybe we could offer the Civic Center tour as part of our Historic Preservation Month gathering, which we would have at least some contest holders. They would have to come on our tour. I don't know if that would be fun or not. They would be here anyway, it'd be fun. So that's my.
Just a reminder, we're moving out of this building in May and it's gonna be under construction for 2 years.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay, well,
Will that
maybe
be
in
the
3
beginning of the month or,
Mine is not clear yet.
so we want to do a tour, we should do it.
Yeah.
Before tour.
Lisa, do we know, are we meeting in the library at?
Yeah, our meetings going forward, will be in Anderson Room in the library, so we have books. There's a possibility it would be at Laux. There's a possibility we can start having them at Safe, where we are moving to, but we're we haven't heard it so far, so we expect the June meeting. Will be keep it still, just looking to work through it all.
Is that gonna be coming to the HLC?
We will update you, but as the latest application that we're reviewing now, they're meeting the standards, so it doesn't need to come to.
Good. Well, that's good to hear. Okay, great. Anything else about Historic Preservation Month? Cool. Then let's go ahead and move on to the work plan assignments. Usually we do new work plan assignments at the beginning of the year. You know, based on our work plan that we presented to council. This month, I don't have a list of the committees in front of me and I can never remember their names, I'm sorry. Is there some names? Can you bring that up really quick?
Left one under your script.
Oh, I see. I guess it just says like, it says like photo contest, but, oh, and then public education. Oh, I'm confused, I understand what that means, okay. Okay, so it does say, Kara, you're gonna be in charge of awards this year?
I think so.
Okay, great. And so, that specifically means that you're gonna be in charge of the, or what does that mean to you?
What does that mean to you, Kim? That's so funny.
So typically what we'll do, so this is separate from the photo awards, which is Wayne and Charles and Connie. So if you remember, or maybe you don't remember, we have several awards for the Ben Maxwell Award, so those are for projects. And there's in the past been different categories, and then there's the Virginia Green Award, which is a person doing wonderful things. So usually staff will send like a list, and then you can look at it and be like, yay, or come up with your own separate idea. But my perception of your job is that you would make a recommendation for the projects and people think are worthy for the larger group.
I'm gonna make recommendations for project awards.
Okay, great. I'm so happy to hear that. Do you feel like you need any support?
I think I'm okay.
Okay, great, amazing, well then you're in charge of awards, and we all know what that means now. Okay, the next one is gonna be our public education committee, and sadly, Ian, he's so he is not gonna be able to serve that role anymore, so I need a new person to be in charge of our public education, which in the past has kind of been our social media person. I know Andy did posts on our Instagram and Facebook, and kind of helped, I think Andy's the one who ran the Facebook Live of the archaeology event, so it was kind of that sort of interfacing with the public. So if anybody feels like they would like that role, I will sign you up.
I believe Andy volunteered to continue working on that for us, so
Oh, it's gonna continue helping?
I believe so.
Okay, we should really have a commissioner too, just to offer support or whatever, in case he decides he doesn't want to do it anymore, because he's not wired to do it. So he's not a- so is there somebody who would like to be the second on that? Commissioner Oakley, I don't see him.
I will say I don't use any of those, so I don't think I'm the best
Okay.
person.
Fair enough. I'm kind of looking at Charles, but you're already on the photo.
Much like my colleague here, I have no social media, so.
I'm staring at Karen. Kara's good at that.
Believe it or not, I don't use those.
Oh my word.
My dog's data.
And communication. Your job, yeah. See how much I understand about what we do.
The relevant question is, does anybody use social media?
Well, then we'll just rely on.
Okay. Thanks, Andy, for watching. Okay, the next committee is the designation committee, and Juliana is on that committee. And I'm happy to also be on that committee because we worked on the school together, and I'm happy to continue working on designation. I know that we had sort of been looking at the park. I haven't heard anything on that in a while. I don't know if you've heard anything, Jacob.
I haven't got a recent update on that. Probably, especially now the criterion is moving on it, if we're working on it, I'm happy to do what I do. But sure.
Maybe you could just check in on that and we could put that kind of on our agenda for this year. Are there any other designations that we're looking this year?
There is one that is, if you remember, probably about a year ago, we were contacted by the new owners of the Jerry Frank House.
Yeah,
And they proceeded to do what they did, and so that went on hold, but I was recently contacted by them, they are looking at a local designation for that. You know, and my understanding is they haven't done exterior alterations. Little or any, so that's a good thing because, you know, look at the exterior interiors. That would be one that would be, and given that there'd be a lot of materials and things to look through, you know, there should be a good documentation of that property especially. So if somebody has an interest in that, that's one that we probably get on pretty quickly, because the owners did express an interest in moving forward on that one.
Okay.
Just recently.
that's very exciting. Commissioner Olving, this might suit your skills.
That's fine.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a limit on. Number, that's.
And
I
with
have done
the,
that on like social media.
with the few of us, you know, maybe some of us could work on one and some of us work on the other, so it's kind of nice. Choice there. So, is there anybody else interested in being on that committee?
If they need specific like documentation, like can certainly help facilitate any drawings or plans that they like can upload them or digitize them or
Okay.
whatever makes it.
And that's on the Frank House. Okay, cool, excellent, I got you on the list, so, yeah, maybe you could just kind of loop us in, I think maybe 4 people is quorum, is that right? Or is it 5?
Currently 4 people is quorum when we add our grant commissioner and we put.
Okay, well, then maybe we could, well, Commissioner Morris wants to do the Frank House, Juliana or Robert, do you have a preference on whether you work on the park or the Jerry Frank House?
Which park?
Oh, the Englewood Park.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
What part do you do?
I'm interested in Englewood.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what I'm interested in, just because I've already kind of started on it, so maybe Commissioner Olving and Commissioner Morris could work together on the Frank House, would that sound good? Okay, perfect. Okay, that moves us on to our next project that we have going on, which is the Scan Heritage Neighborhood. I am on that committee. I still haven't really heard anything about this. I know just a little, like maybe they started.
Yes, the scan legal there, they have started. They have about 10 volunteers.
Okay.
And we've done the initial meeting to get them set up so they can go and use the application on their phones, you know.
Okay.
That we haven't had a whole lot of them hitting a whole lot of the data points, so we're going to do a follow-up meeting to get a lot of the data, the photographic data in there.
Okay.
Expect that we can soon.
Well, feel free to invite me to that meeting.
Yeah, and we'll add anyone who wants to join in, you know, it's an open group, so anyone who wants to go through and take some pictures and work on that. We also have an intern that's working with us through the spring, so especially early on, that's good because then they can use that data.
I know for other Heritage Neighborhood projects where we've done the survey data, we kind of introduced, or we did like a survey day. And then, you know, we had a few commissioners come out and do some survey. I don't know if that's something that we want to do for this Heritage Neighborhood program, but
I mean, that would be great if y'all want to do that, I'm happy to.
we have a lot of expertise, so I think it would be great to take advantage of that.
If we could do it on a weekend,
Yeah,
like,
that's probably what I would prefer as well.
Saturday.
I'm happy to.
Great, amazing.
We get it done fast.
Yeah, so good. Okay, great. Love it.
And so just to clarify, Robert and Karen and Kirsten, were you as well?
Perfect. Okay, and then that leads us to our last one, which is public archaeology, which is Jessica. So thank you, Jessica, for leading that group. Maybe if Zach could just check in and see if she needs support on anything that she wants to do, because I know October always comes so fast. So if there's anything we want to do for archaeology month, maybe we could talk about that.
Yeah, and so one of the organizations that I'm actually on the board of now, the Oregon Archaeological Society, has offered to take the lead in the poster. So I don't know if you all remember the poster, which I know SHPO was doing for a while, and then they lost capacity and money and the things that happened. But OAS, there's a couple of folks at OAS who used to be involved in it, because it's been going on, I guess, for many years. And so I think, again, I think Robert, you talked about partnering. I think that could be a good partner project for us, that we would be, I think 1 year, Jessica, we did a postcard mailing, because we were like, we can't do a poster, but we'll do a postcard. But having a larger, and this is a statewide organization, be involved, then we can provide some support. And they, there's representatives from different organizations and agencies from all over the state, and they decide on like a theme, and then pick a photo or do a design, and then that theme we could then pick up. And so they're starting right now. So, and then I think Jessica, I'll have to remind her, the other thing that SHPO used to do is send something to the governor's office to declare it a proclamation. And yeah. So I'll ask her, she was talking about that.
Okay.
Yep.
Amazing.
The other thing that maybe this follows the process for the National Register list, and that'd be a good promotion time, because it's a good time about then.
Would it? That would be cool. Yeah.
I was gonna say, we have a very cool archaeology thing going on right now, so maybe that would be a good time. Exciting, okay, great. I think then, are there any other notes on the work plan assignments? Do you all feel happy to landed on those? Okay, great. And everybody has what they need to. Good work. Okay. Then we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide.
It's me again, Flo. We are struggling with the printing edition, but hopefully it'll go out next week. But we're thinking about our spring edition already, and I have in my notes that the theme that people kind of discussed last time was cartography, name places, maps, things, so things that have changed names and where things used to be and whatnot, was kind of what people expressed an interest in. There's some old maps. if anyone, I don't know if anyone thought of articles that they would write for that, but that was the theme that was discussed. If no one could think of anything, we can easily change themes.
I just saw in the presentation earlier, there was one called Shinakitty. That should be the cover image, because that's interesting. I'm sure there's much to it, but
I was thinking the same actually, because it's neat, because it has place names that we recognize, but they're different. Clearly. Why we're naming things that are. I'm wondering, and I'm gonna volunteer myself to the detriment of time. But Sandburg maps are really cool. And had an article on Sandburg maps, like more of the how to, because we have like the Marion County Historical Society.
They're available free through the library too.
Yeah, okay, through the lab, but we could like, kind of hit on like, you can go here and go look at that. Here's how to use that. You can look at
You could reference the site here where they use the.
Yeah.
Example.
Yeah.
I love it.
How, for article length, how many words do we typically? Whatever.
It's usually like what, like 500?
Yeah, I'd say about 500, but
Pictures, lots of pictures.
it's online, so to your heart's content, you can, and we can send a really long email.
Okay, when do you need the article?
Approximately March 20th, I don't know what day of the week.
In a month?
Yeah.
30 days, less than 30 days?
Yeah.
Alright.
Anybody have any other ideas for map or drawing? I'm wondering if maybe like an architectural drawing would be interesting. I'm looking at Commissioner Morris.
You're thinking like historic,
I don't know if something cool that springs to mind, sure, but I think it would be it.
yeah, we do have a bunch of, I think I've got a bunch of drawings right now. We've been going through a lot of drawings, digitizing like old buildings from, like, they're historic, but they're 50s.
It's 75 years. This could be an archaeological.
No.
We lost a set of drawings.
No. Wait, what's your church?
Singapore.
No. So I think we have like First Pres, might have some of their drawings, I'm not sure. Yeah, let me look through what I've got. We've got a bunch.
Just this like comes to mind, I think it might be kind of interesting to talk about like how the plans used to be drawn and like, how it was all computer, but like you had to be so precise. Like,
Yeah.
this hand drawn, maybe other people.
Yeah, yes,
Hundreds.
I know, yeah, we both probably,
1,000 sheets of.
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
use drawings, yeah. Yeah, but between the two of us, we can probably come up with something.
Okay, amazing. Perfect.
Like at least one more volunteer, please.
Maps, place name. I'm thinking about the hotel that used to be the Marion Car Park that used to be the Holman building. Oh, it's now Holman Hotel. But maybe that's an interesting example of like how a name kind of sticks around.
Can I make a suggestion? I don't know if they'll do it, but, so given that the landscape architecture month falls in the spring, and the board and scribe where folks do their own newsletter, and I saw kind of a cool feature on drawings and maps. I mean, we could ask, and I was just talking to Ross Sutherland and Yvonne is now the new director of the Women's Scribe Conservancy, if it's okay to ask to.
We love collaboration.
Right?
Yes, amazing.
It might be a neat crossover.
I like that idea.
That sounds like.
Great. Okay, great. Anything else on the newsletter? We're good. Okay. Then we'll go ahead and move on to public comments for items not on the record. There's no So we'll move on to the historic preservation officer report.
Okay, so I'm not gonna pass this around, but I am going to email it to you, or I have exact. We finally, we have our final draft of the Heritage Resiliency, Salem Heritage Resource Disaster Resilience Plan. So some of you were here when Melissa from UO came and did a presentation on it. We are going to come back and ask for formal action to adopt this as a support document to our historic preservation plan, but I just wanted you to know that the work has been done and we're really excited about it. And that we're also working with the Culture and Heritage Forum. We got some grant money to develop a disaster resilience toolkits to provide to it's a kind of a pilot project. We'll see how many organizations want to participate, but what it would begin with is we're going to be doing a survey, just kind of asking what folks need, like, do you need tarps, do you need boxes, what do you need help with? And then we'll put together a little kit to help them. So it's supposed, like, it feels very like direct and actionable. So just really excited about that one. And then two other things in March. So Jake and I are going to be going to the Window Preservation Alliance Conference in Astoria on March 13th through the 15th to learn all about windows and geek out about that. If you're interested and want to know more information, just let us know. We'll regardless bring back stuff and things to share with you. And then the Northwest Anthropological Association Conference is in Portland the last week of March, and I'm very excited. The tribes are, there's gonna be a day focused on traditional foods, first foods, so we're gonna have a traditional foods forum. So looking forward to that. So that's all I have to do. I think we should talk about the criteria.
Yeah, just, all I had was really a quick note about Criteria Schoolhouse, that it has been moving forward through the process at the city council. And that we did have the hearing, the most recent council meeting. Some discussion, all it was, the questions were supportive and then they voted for approval, which is good, right? Very good. And so we're happy about that, so we're happy with that process.
And then Kirsten did a good job. She represented the council with our annual.
Yeah, we had just our each of the commissions, the Parks Board, the Art Advisory Committee, and then the Historic Landmarks Commission all had a spot on the agenda to talk about what they do. The councilors had a couple of questions about our Missing Features Grant project that we did in December. So take supportive of that generally. So that was nice to kind of talk about. And I think that's kind of all of it. Okay, great. Then we've got commissioner comments for the good of the order. Dad?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
Or you gotta help me out. Regarding the timeline on the House Bill 3190, and I don't really know about the FAC stuff, if it's in the crossover or something. Is it acceptable to suggest that we could write a letter to support that? It's to bring back the special assessment program, or it's too late to provide anything? Someone talk to me.
And I'll ask Lisa to jump in. So you can testify as an individual, which I'm thinking you did already, great to do. But the Landmarks Commission is not an advocacy group. And so, and the city has its own process. Lisa.
That's fine. If you say we can't do it, I don't.
Yeah, we have our own lobbyists and legislative committee councilors, and they take positions on bills and determine if the cities come in, submit a letter, or testify, or support it, or watch it, or.
Okay.
And I believe they're just watching this.
Just making sure.
Good to know about it. Should keep telling you. Okay, anything else? Great, then I think we'll go ahead and, what am I supposed to say? Adjourn. Adjourn.